perfect, Dave.
Thank you. You're right. I'm not gonna argue that.
He's a brilliant actor and comic whose impeccable timing has made us laugh out loud in movies like Anchorman and in shows like The Goldbergs. He is the toast of Tipton, Missouri, with an IMDb profile that puts even your favorite to shame. He quintessential big dog, veteran actor, comedian, and freaking superstar David Koechner. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on today.
As am I. Thank you so much, Erica.
Listen,
ERD.
say it again.
ERD.
ERD, that's right. ERD, that is me, and that rhymes. Before we jump in, guys, remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Dave Koechner. So we're in quarantine, shelter in place, whatever you want to call it at this point. You've got 5 kids. How are you managing yourself and all the kids during this time of uncertainty?
Well, just real quick, if you don't mind, I'd like to address those that you just asked to hit the like button. If you don't, we know your URL, and each one is connected to a street address. Take it as a threat if you want to, but we know.
It's a threat. We
And
will
I don't
find
have-
you.
And I don't have much to do. Yes, I have 5 children, ranging from the age of 21 to 9. Charlie's 21, Margot's 18, Sargent and Audrey are twins. They're 14, and Eve is 8. So what do? I think you just keep learning like everybody else right now. Patience is available.
Yeah.
You know how to use it. So I think, I think there's an expectation. I certainly have. I'm assuming most Americans do that. Well, when's it gonna be over? Okay, I'll agree to this. When's it gonna be over? It's almost like giving a kid a timeout. That's fine, but what's the agreement? When's it over? And we don't know. And really, it is going to be over when you behave. And so far, we're not behaving. It should be over. If we look at the rest of the world, it should be over. I believe Germany is recording 1 death a day or something like that.
Yep.
So it's doable.
It is, and you, like I am, you're a huge sports fan. So we are longing and pining for football season. And granted, football and sports are the most nominal, unimportant part of all of this, especially because we've lost so many lives. Unemployment is so high. So sports is very trivial compared to how we've actually been impacted. But to your point about moving on and having more normal life return, it would be nice to have sports back. I mean, you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I know you're looking forward to the NFL season.
If nothing else, when do I get to gloat? Come on, right? We're world champions. If there's not a season, we can't talk about it all year long. Well, we're going to be talking about it for the next 10 years because I appreciate the Patriots fans. And I would think, they've earned the right to be the most hated franchise of the last decade. They earned it. They dominated. They're the greatest team of the past 10 years, maybe the greatest franchise in the history of the sport.
Please don't hype them up any more than
No. I'll give it to them because that's where I stand on the precipice of that same mountain or plateau or place, because we will be vaunted. We will be there for 10 years minimum.
Well, now that you guys have paid Patrick Mahomes $503 million for that 10 years, you better make the most of that huge contract.
Rightly so. And you know what? The other players are getting paid from the Chiefs as well. He was smart. From what I understand, they all go into this looking like how much money's in that pot. So if he takes this much, we know we're going to need more for the other key players. And from what I'm seeing, it's getting there. So it's a business.
If you guys out there don't know, which you should, Dave Koechner and Rob Riggle are 2 of the most high-profile, ridiculously obsessed Kansas City Chiefs super fans. And I saw your bits at the Super Bowl, and I thought to myself, first of all, when you are such a high-profile celebrity super fan of a team like that, do you have to pay for your own tickets, or do you just get red carpet rolled out for you whenever you go to the game?
I got an opportunity to purchase tickets.
Okay.
That weren't readily available. I don't know how all of that works. Someone comes in and buys all the tickets immediately, I'm guessing. And then, so certain, like the owners are able to take face value of a certain number of tickets. So they're still not cheap, but you don't get gouged. My brother, Mark, lifelong Chiefs fan as well. First Chiefs game I remember, I was 10 years old. I think it was Christmas Day. They're in Tipton, Missouri. The Chiefs are playing the Miami Dolphins, at the time, the longest game in football history. And we lost. Jan Stenerud, wide right. I think it was 3 overtimes. Ooh. But my cousins from Kansas City were all there at my grandmother's house. And so that's when I became a Chiefs fan. I had a poster of Willie Lanier on my bedroom wall. So, you know, I didn't have what Lenny Dawson, you know. But anyway, so my brother was a lifetime Chiefs fan. He's a season ticket holder. And he thought, all his friends there in Tipton were asking, "Are you going to go, Mark?" You know, teasing him. He said, I don't know. And so on his 60th birthday, which is January 22nd, is the day I found out that tickets would be made available to me to purchase at a reasonable price. And so I called him on his 60th birthday and said, "Mark, you're coming to the Super Bowl with me." So that was great.
You're the best brother ever, because I cannot even imagine. I'm a long-suffering UGA football fan and also a long-suffering Clippers fan. Georgia has never made we've never won a championship in my lifetime, and Clippers have never even made it out of the second round. So I feel your pain. I want you to kind of teach me how it feels to finally get to the promised land and get your flowers.
Well, I'll tell you, you don't finish watching that Super Bowl that you were in because you won it. You won that Super Bowl. That's incredible. But you know this. In your heart of hearts, you know this to be true. Had Mark said, "No, I can't go," the next number I dial is ERD.
Listen, I'm going to hold you to that for when you guys make it back to next year's Super Bowl. If we have a Super Bowl, if Brother Mark decides to decline his tickets, I'm right there with you.
The only issue, listeners, is I don't have her phone number. So like every male out there going, how do you get that number? That number is harder to get than a Super Bowl ticket.
That's right, Dave. You better tell them.
That's right.
Let me ask you this, Dave. So, you know, the Redskins, the team formerly known as the Redskins, have been
under scrutiny. The racist skins. Go ahead.
The racist skins. Okay, thank you for just putting it out there, because some people like to dance around how Redskins.
You can't dance against bald-faced racism. There's no excuse.
Okay, so to that, though, Dave, I want to ask you, even though the Chiefs' name is not rooted in Native American culture, the fans have adopted Native American imagery to celebrate with the tomahawk chop, wearing headdresses to games. How would you feel? Would you support a push to change Kansas City's name, mascot, logo, and branding if there was a real push and move to do that?
If it is from an honest place, from indigenous peoples that report that seeing that name, I'm talking about the name only, used as a mascot, they find offensive. Now, you say wearing headdress. Immediately, I can see why that's a problem. So if that's a problem, let's don't do it. So those things, the accoutrement, if those are offensive, let's don't do it. But on the face of it, one could make an argument, and I'm not making an argument. I'm just trying to make the comparison. The Chiefs could also be called the Generals. If I'm off, I'm willing to hear it. I don't have the authority to make that argument and say that is so, because I don't know. Because if it all is a cultural significance that I don't understand because I'm not part of it, then I can't make that argument. So let's take it. If you said the Catholics, would seem like, well, that's a little weird. Okay, what about the priests? Is that offensive? I don't know. The popes, the bishops, the cardinals, I don't see how that's bad. You have those names in high school sports. So if it is brought to my attention that is a hurtful thing, if it hurts those people that that own it, then I'd say, sure, you got to change it. But I don't know. I haven't heard that argument. Now, what you're saying, co-opting traditions or culture and using it as their mascots is wrong. They've stopped having Chief Wahoo,
For
right?
the Cleveland Indians,
Yes.
yeah.
And there was a chief there was a chief on a mounted horse every time the Chiefs would score. I think that's gone. There was a horse called War Paint
Mm.
that would ride around the stadium. I think that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not positive, but like you said, the co-opting the accoutrement of symbols from the native peoples, if that's offensive, don't do it. And I could easily see how that's offensive.
I appreciate that, Dave, because
But
everyone doesn't.
but I don't know. Is an Indian headdress the same as a captain's hat? I don't know. But if it's not, then please don't do it.
Thank
You
you.
don't need it. Now, the chant of the Chiefs do in the stadium. Oh, whoa! Is that offensive? If it is, let's stop it.
Yeah, I spoke with a Native American activist and journalist whose name is Johnny J, who talked about how I think it's called war whooping, and
Okay.
that is an appropriation of something sacred to indigenous culture. So definitely tomahawk chop
That
needs to go.
makes
But
it offensive. Okay, then I think we educate first. You don't tell people. I would say there's steps to do it. I was investigating like that. I'm going through a divorce right now, and so I have 5 kids. And sometimes your kids are mad at you and you don't know why. Well, you owe them an apology for something. Now you might not know why, and it might not have been intentional. And from where you sit, it might not even be in your mind consequential. That's not up to me to decide. So I bring this up because I've been doing some research, and the old thought was there are 3 components to an apology. And then the newer thinking is there are 6 components to an apology. And again, I bring this up because when looking at these types of ideas of what we can and cannot and should or should not do, let's investigate it first rather than just somebody else going, hey, here's what's happening. Let's ask, is this bad? Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me why? Yeah. And in the most plain, ethical, clean language we can use. And, we're very fortunate that it's finally happening.
right.
I'm grateful that people are being patient enough to be educated about everything, not shamed into it, but come with an open, understanding heart to honestly want to know, as opposed to accepting it grudgingly.
Yep.
And it really comes down to nothing other than just what's pure human.
Thank you. Be kind, be empathetic,
Well,
connect with someone else, understand their
again,
story.
or let's be equal, absolutely, at every step. And no one can say, well, what's that mean? Then all we had to do is cite examples.
Right.
And everyone wants to get but many of us have this reaction of, well, it's not me. Yes, it is. I guarantee you it's you. It's all of us, because you are a human being. If I am overly polite to a minority, that's racism. Now, my desire might be to show that I'm nice to everybody, but then you're also showing that I consider you different.
But Dave, but let me say this. I think, and as a minority, double minority, Black woman in America, um, I appreciate when people sometimes want to go above and beyond to be extra nice because they don't know what else to do. Because some people just don't know what else to do. I understand what you're saying about treating everyone as an equal, but sometimes if you haven't done the research, if you haven't done the reading, and you don't know where to start, sometimes the lay person just starts with, let me be extra nice to this person so they know that I'm coming and not bringing any offense to them and their experiences.
It shows a willingness to learn, an openness to learn, just like the six components of an apology. Where do I start? It's not, I'm sorry, am I done? No. I'm sorry. Okay. For what? That's part of it. Oh, did I do something else? You may not have known, but yeah, you did. Oh, if I'm still willing to accept my part, if the other person has a resentment, then I played a part in it, then let's dig into it. Because if my desire is to rid anyone I know of resentments, especially myself, that's where we stay. It's pretty simple. And it just goes just like relationships. There's no reason to have resentments in relationships. And everyone wants to immediately, I say everyone, we naturally think, well, that's impossible. No, it's not. If we're both honestly willing to examine our behavior and our expectations, then we can get to a place of no resentment. If you did the dishes 3 days in a row and you didn't do them for me, you did them, maybe you just crave organization, can't stand dirty dishes.
We're
But
Virgos. Both of us are Virgos, so that's
right,
probably us.
yeah. But if on the third day I don't thank you or recognize that you did it, now you might start being resentful. You didn't do them for me to begin with, but the mere fact that I never acknowledged it, now it's like, hey, but there was no reason for it other than one, you should be able to say, hey, I did the dishes. And then I have to go, oh, thank you. Now we're done. Hey, I did the dishes. So, oh, you want a medal for doing the dishes? Now we're getting divorced. Not now, but 10 years from now.
Life changes. We pivot, we grow. How are you emotionally with what you're dealing with your family?
Well, I would say um, intentional, and I
Hmm.
have a very clear understanding of responsibility. So that's where I am.
I like that.
Yeah.
Let Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Well, no, that's fine. So that's as close as I can say it in a neutral way without adding garbage that I was going to say I'm very clear, but in this town that has a distinction that I didn't want to put out there. For those not knowing what I'm saying, clear is associated with a certain religion. And that's not what I mean. But I'm clear as to what I need to do. And I'm open and understanding of what my responsibilities are to my children. Because if a family goes through divorce, no one there is unhurt.
Especially the kids.
Yep.
They bear the biggest burden
Yeah.
of it,
And you hope
unfortunately.
and you ignore. But the thing is, kids won't tell you I'm hurt. They'll act ways that are outside of what the hurt path may have caused. So it shows up somewhere else, and you're like, what's going on? Why are you doing this today? It's not about that thing today. It's about something maybe 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So then my responsibility is to do the archaeology of pain.
I want to do some digging myself into your illustrious career.
Of course, that's what people, really, that's what they're here for.
Well, no, I mean, well,
I'm
we're here
kidding.
for
It's
we are here for all of
self-deprecating.
you.
I'm deflecting.
Well, listen, you guys, I want to know everything within the limited time that we
Okay.
have about your success story, starting from
Right.
how before you became a household name. You paid your comedy dues as
Yes.
part of sketch and improv groups and Second City, and then ultimately you performed with Dave Allen. How did those experiences shape you and how you've become a successful artist today?
Well, that is a great question. That's a lot to unpack. I had a conversation with a journalist from Chicago this week, and he's writing a book about improvisation in Chicago from the years 1985 to the years 1995. And those happen to be the years I was in Chicago studying. And it was fascinating to go back through my time there, beginning, middle, and then leaving, um, and what I learned and what I went through. And he says it's one of the most intense uh, decades for improvisation maybe ever. And I can see it. And we're trying to unpack why, what happened. And near as I can say, and I hope this doesn't impede on what he's doing, but when I was a kid, when I was 13, I saw Saturday Night Live for the first time. 1975, that's when it began. And I saw it. Now, before that, people only in the region of Chicago would probably participate in Second City. You either lived there or you lived near there. But then suddenly you've got these people from all over the country watching Saturday Night Live and then figuring out, oh, they came from the Second City in Chicago. So 20 years later or 10 or 15 years later, they showed up in Chicago at the same time to do that thing that they loved when they were a kid. That's as near as I can explain why those people. And what I'll say is this: I'm talking about myself. and I'm not putting myself in any particular group. I'm just giving you in this time period the people that happened to be there. Steve Colbert, Steve Carell, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, John Glazer, Brian McCann, Brian Stack. Those are Conan writers. Andy Richter. Let me keep going. Horatio Sands, Rachel Dratch, Adam McKay. Did I mention Adam? There's a list of about 30 people, and I keep telling myself to write this list down, that have made a huge impact on comedy, and as a performer, writer, or director, that happened to be there during that time period. And it's just astounding when you look at this.
That is a ridiculously impressive list.
Right.
So what was it about that time period that produced so many generational, once in a generation talents? Like those 10, 15 people you just named right there have impressed our culture so much.
I really do believe it was timing. So you're looking at, so if you broke this down, you know that book Freakonomics?
Freakonomics by who?
It's an older one. So you've heard of Outliers.
I know Outliers by Malcolm.
By Malcolm Gladwell. And he breaks down the theory of success of, why did Bill Gates become Bill Gates? Well, Bill Gates happened to live very close to the University of Washington, and he loved computers, and they had a computer lab there. If those two things didn't exist and he didn't live there, Bill Gates wouldn't have become who he was. So what I'm saying, in Freakonomics would go through happenings that seem unexplained or coincidental, but really actually had many, what's the word I'm looking for? Reasons that it happened in that way. For instance, what can I think about? Okay. The crime wave, I believe this is correct. There's a crime wave happening in New York City, and people think it's only going to get worse and it's going to be so catastrophic it will be insurmountable. Around the same time, abortion became legal. And because poor people weren't forced into a situation that they didn't want to be in, it relieved the necessity for crime for poor people to survive. Because there's nothing wrong with poor people other than they're trying to survive in ways that are accessible. So people that don't understand the dynamic of why poor people commit more crimes, they've never been poor, or they just lack empathy completely. Right. A poor person doesn't have a color. Now, the fact that you see more people of color that are poor, that is abject racism. So that's the racist thing. It's not that more of one color commits crime. It's more of one color has been denied opportunity. Right. Generationally. That's the crime. Those are the people that should be hauled away in cuffs when they knew it and they didn't do anything, and they propagated and they institutionalized it. That's the crime. And then when you want to obfuscate the argument and say, oh, well, those people, no. You're criminal. We're all humans. We're all exactly the same, given the opportunity. In every group of us, there are going to be winners and losers. There's going to be champions and cheaters.
Right. And I guess one of my questions to you is that you were afforded opportunities early on to be amongst the Tina Feys, the Stephen Colberts, to be around people who were ambitious.
Let me go back to your original question. So my Freakonomics comparison would be timing. Why then? Because the nearest I can say, we happened to all be there at the same time.
Can you date back or think back to any major obstacles that stood between what you considered to be your ultimate goal, your ultimate road to success? Like when you're surrounded by so many talented people, when you have that amount of resources, did you ever feel like, sheesh, I might as well just move back to Missouri? This is not working out for me.
No, I only thought, wow, there's a lot of good people. I assumed that's the way it always was. I being there at that time, that's all I had to take into account. I didn't know it wasn't always like this. I didn't know it wasn't always going to be like this. I thought this is the way this works. These people are all here. They must always be here. Now, had I been there 5 years earlier, And 5 years later, I would have seen the difference.
Timing.
And I think that's going to be a lot of what Jack's book is about. And he's got theories about that. Jack Hellbook. I believe he's writing that book with Matt Besser.
Dave Koechner, there is a push, and maybe this has always been the case, but I feel like I see it more often now than I ever have, for actors to also moonlight as comedians. Can't say how many people I know or associate with who are not trained, who didn't go to Second City, who didn't do iOS, who didn't do groundlings, but whose agents and reps are saying, go up there and do stand up, you know.
Okay. And why are they saying that?
Well, so this is my question for you. I feel people and agents and reps are encouraging their talent to put their irons in all the fires because it makes you more marketable. But I know that the things like comedy, for example, which is a strong suit for you, a lot of people are offended by the fact that random actors who have no proper training are just taking up comedy and
again, not. Let's break each one of these things down, right? First of all, it's nobody else's business what I decide to pursue. Going back to resentments, if I'm a comic and I resent the fact that what I consider a non-comic has dared to stand in front of a microphone, then does that give that actor the same purpose that if I see you come into an audition, then I can say, what are you doing here? Number one, let's go back to equal. What does this all fall under the header of? Show business, right?
Right.
Okay, show business. In show business, I have my business. Do you have your business?
Have my business.
Why are you in my business? Would you like to do business together? Now you're in my business. If you're not in my business, then please stay out. Now, I'm not going to fight you because it doesn't do me any good to offer you resistance, because then I'm in business with you. And someone says, how dare you get up and do stand-up? Okay, thank you for your opinion. Is there something else I can help you with? Now, if you'd like me to hear why it bothers you, you can start talking. I'm not going to give you an explanation because I don't owe you one. Perhaps your fears are getting the best of you, and that's something you need to explore. Now, if I'm bad up there and people laugh, now you have something to be mad about, because then I've diluted the art that you've worked so hard to do. But that's never going to be taken into account by the people sitting in their audience. We can't decide what they do and don't laugh at. We can only do and find out what happens. There's a quote in Judd Apatow's book. Albert Brooks says, and because Albert Brooks is a brilliant comic and actor and was always tip of the spear in comedy. He would do comedies that were just brilliantly funny, but not necessarily box office success. And I remember in his interview with Judd, he said, the money's in the middle. So, and what I mean by that is, what's the most popular makes the most money. Now, the comic in the back of the room that might know what the funniest joke actually is, might not care for it. But it doesn't matter. If the audience makes the choice, that's their choice. There are sitcoms on television that probably everyone might agree that's not high art. So what? Do you like it? Fine.
Yeah.
Does it hurt anybody? No? Then it's fine. Does it make people feel bad? Does it denigrate anybody? If the answer is still no, then that's fine. You can't teach everybody to have the same comic taste that you do. Right. Then why don't you do it, and you do it better, and you make your money however you want to do it. Anybody might say Woody Allen's comedies are the greatest of all time, let's say.
Okay.
There's certain nuances that broad comedies just don't possess. Fine. Well, in the end, what do we find out? This guy was allegedly doing things that would abhor you.
Yeah.
Now what? You going to turn away from it? Did it really happen?
Do you separate the art from the artist, which is something that I feel that in this culture we're consistently having to battle?
That's a cheat. There was a woman who was one of the early proponents or champions of abortion. I just read this yesterday. I don't know her name, but it was just recently found out that she was pro-eugenics. And so therefore she's disqualified to be honored.
Again,
That's a major flaw that you don't ignore. Now you can say, I ignore your contribution to a thing. I don't honor you. You know, there's a difference between accepting what happened fully, all of it. That doesn't mean if one person had one bad day, it disqualifies everything. But if you hold a set of beliefs that are counter to what is the greater good, then that has to be exposed. Did you see, I forget his name, on MSNBC, he did a documentary about the Confederacy, the modern Confederacy. And he talked to Jefferson Davis's great-great-great-grandson. He said, you can't hold a man for only 4 years of his life that he was wrong. What about after that? It was like, hold on. He still did it. And then what did he do? Did he work every day for the rest of his life to right that wrong, to make amends? I don't think so.
Well,
So
maybe
again,
not in that case, Dave, but I feel like now we're talking about cancel culture, what we now call cancel culture.
Mhm.
Like when we take a person's worst wrong ever and then hold that against them without giving them the grace to show new patterns of behavior.
Well,
Now,
if the grace exists, then it'll overcome the cancel.
okay.
It's, you know, if you saddle your horse and head toward the cancel culture, you're going to get in. It's just like we're just talking about broad comedies. There can be a broad desire to cancel. Well, that doesn't work either. That's fascism. You got to know when you're being a fascist about something. I understand there's a lot of kids on college campuses that think they're progressive, but are actually fascist because they become word police and say comics can't say certain things on stage because it bothers them. No, hold on. You don't get to decide what gets said. And it might have a larger point. It might be satire, and you're missing the entire point. So this idea, and what you have to see is who's yelling about cancel culture the most. Those who have been canceled, and then they make a broad argument why all of cancel culture is wrong. You know, you can't compare taking Robert E. Lee's statue down with the taking down of George Washington's.
I mean, some would argue that their paths are
they're to be looked at for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's a deeper discussion. Robert E. Lee is a pretty simple equation. Right. He was, first of all, a traitor for an ignoble cause. All right. George Washington was horrible for owning human beings, period. Now, we don't look at the rest of his contributions and ignore what he did. Right. So we decide as a culture and as a nation, a progressive nation, because people go, oh, progressives. No, I'm talking about all of us are progressive. If you have a small house, you want a bigger house. That's progress. Right. If you don't have electricity, you want electricity. That's progress. Yep. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about politics. What progresses the greatest number of humans at the same time? That's progress, without harming those that don't progress with you. That's still then in your progress. If I've done it right, then I've only created more opportunity for those that can't progress at the equal amount and time that I do. When you progress, you don't shut the door. When you progress, you create the highway for more, create more room for everybody. That's progress. So George Washington made progress for an idea of liberty, ironically. The irony is he had progress for an idea and a nation of freedom, but held humans. Yeah. That is counterintuitive, and it can't be allowed. And part of his progress, part of his contribution has to be recognized. And if you want to say canceled, we don't cancel it. So no one is saying qualify culture. So why don't we qualify it?
You know what? I like that because
if I make that argument, then that argument still goes for Robert E. Lee. Doesn't he get to be qualified too?
No.
I'm listening.
No.
I can't say no if I'm willing to make a qualification for Washington, and I'm not excusing it. It's inexcusable, and it should not be honored. It takes away from the whole of the man. Absolutely.
Right.
He is not to be honored, and one day he will be taken off the dollar bill. One day his name will be taken off a city, perhaps. Is it Washington or slave owner Washington, first president? That's qualifier. Was it better, or would you remove it? Now, so I'm saying this. It has to be changed. We can't honor this man. You can't.
Wait, hold on. That's what you are saying about George Washington specifically. Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's a logical argument. You can't. I can't honor a man that owned men.
Listen.
And then excused it. I can't honor a man. I can't take a man seriously who wrote "All men are created equal" as the first stroke of my pen, and then own men.
It's
you can't do that.
You can't. Listen, you're not going to get an argument from me, because it's interesting when I listen to constitutional scholars argue about what our founding fathers did for this nation, and I think it's very difficult to separate the great things that they wrote and that they organized for who they considered to be men. Obviously, their slaves were not.
Let's break that down. You're making apologies, and don't.
David Koechner.
You're allowing for those people that aren't brave enough to say the thing. You're saying it's very difficult to separate these things out. No, it's not.
Okay.
It might hurt. An apology is a difficult thing, and this blends right into what we've been talking about the whole time. Apologies are difficult. They're necessary. So an apology is owed. Amends need to be made, period. Now, the discussion is, how are we going to do it, and who gets to decide? Well, progress decides. That's where we are right now. It's not done overnight. It didn't happen in a day. We didn't come to the realization in a day, but thankfully we're at a point of realization. So then these other elements come in that threaten the realization. Things like focusing on a word, cancel culture. Let's just focus on a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now we'll take it all the way to George Washington. Now, George Washington is much different than Abraham Lincoln. They will tell you that Abraham Lincoln's intention wasn't to free the slaves.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a presidential scholar, but I do believe part of the debates were heading toward the clear understanding that this cannot last. Now let's take recent times. President Obama, when he began office, did not announce he was for gay marriage.
Right, which is still a mark on his legacy.
No, it's not. It's politics.
Let's
take it. Okay. He's a smart guy.
Brilliant.
Very bright man. I would say that when Barack Obama was a young man, he had a clear understanding that it's not wrong to have a different gender identification in sexuality. I know he knows that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I start there, I can't convince a guy who won't listen. But if I get to a place where I do have the microphone and can make that progress, it's better to do it there. So I can say, he never said, I will not allow. He said, and he didn't even have to qualify it. I don't know his exact words, but something along the lines of, I'm not for gay marriage.
Right.
Well, by the time he's out of office, guess what we have?
Exactly.
And it wasn't that hard.
You're right. And so I do agree that oftentimes, more often than not, you have to get in the room to make the changes. You have to have a seat at the table to change what the table looks like. Yes. And I also agree that, sometimes we put our own personal moral values on the back burner to affect change in the long term.
How do you get there?
Well, yeah, right. I mean,
if you're not in the room, you can't get there.
Right. And I think that President Obama's patterns of behavior and his policies reflected a heart that was for equality. So,
he's a very smart chess player. I can't play the game if I don't get to the board. and I can't get to the board if you say, I see that some of the pieces you're holding are gay marriage. So you're never going to get to this board. So I'm going to put those pieces in my pocket, and I'll play with the pieces that you have on the board. And then I'm going to remove some of these pieces that were Confederate soldiers, and I'll put this new piece on that says gay rights. And there we go. Because now this is my board that we're playing on, not the board that was here before. It's now my board. I'll give you an example from my life, from Tipton, Missouri. My father was a manufacturer. He was a very naturally gifted, bright man, but he had dyslexia. So he couldn't read. So they didn't think Cecil Koechner was that bright. Well, my father had the mind of an engineer and built a business. All right. Now, he was very successful, had 6 kids. The business is still there. It's just past 60 years. A good man, knew how to do anything, right? Dig the right way to dig a canal or build a structure, build a house, to do anything. So they had a school board, a pool board. So they were building a community pool. And I don't have the date right, but I think it was about 1967 or 68 in Tipton, Missouri. And so the African-American people lived on the other side of the tracks, and the white people lived there. Nobody said anything about it. That's just the way it went, right? Segregation was over, thank God. But here's something that happened. They built a community pool. So it was going to be a public pool, but the community had to pay dues to join the pool. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was something.
Right.
So the school board, the pool board that my dad was on, because he was involved in the construction of this pool, they decided who are we going to allow to join the community pool.
1970s?
No. It's the 60s.
60s, okay.
I'm thinking 67. I don't know for sure. Now, this is a private enterprise, but it's community owned, right? It's not owned by the city. It's the community pool. So anybody that wanted to join could, right? And the dues were minimal. I don't know. Let's say $30 a year. Not a lot. So it's not a country club. So the pool board decided they're not going to let African Americans join the community pool. So my dad quit. Now I have to give him, respect for that. He stood up. And so I'm not going to be part of this, right? If you're not going to allow everybody in this community to join it, I'm going to leave. That was a very brave thing to do in a very small town. But as per our discussion we both just had, wouldn't it have been better to stay?
To continue having that influence on those people who.
So the next year,
you
go, all right.
Yeah.
New year, we're going to bring up the same discussion. So we've got 50 people that joined the pool. Now, if we had 10 more people that joined the pool, we could have broken even and not lost money. So it always comes down to money. I know 10 African-American families that love to join the community pool, and they'll do it tonight, and we'll finally break even. Or we can keep losing money. What do you guys want to do? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, it's the long game. So when you think about Obama going in, not running on the platform of I am going to ensure that we have, gay marriage, that's not the place you start. But the politics, the smarter game is let me get my chessboard.
Right.
I don't have opinions.
What?
I'm kidding.
Shut up.
What? We're supposed to talk about sports. What are you talking about?
No, we're supposed to be talking about everything. I want to know who do you admire? Who do you like? Who is the favorite? Who's your favorite co-star?
ERD.
I mean, obviously.
ERD.
Obviously me. Are you a Dave Chappelle fan? Are you a Cat Williams fan? Are you Michelle Wolf?
Oh, for comics?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Bill Burr.
Not even just who?
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr. Okay.
The best.
I love Bill Burr too.
I like our discussion. I was a poli-sci major. I don't know if you can tell.
I think I remember that. I was broadcasting poli-sci too. So we could do this all day. Yeah. And I think people will appreciate this part of you because we are so used to, was it Champ Kind and the Gallon Hat?
Oh, right. I'm not, look, the characters I'm best known for, Champ Kind and Todd Packer. Champ Kind and Todd Packer are both, they're white, they're racist, they're misogynist, they're jingoistic, they are homophobic. I always tell people that's not me. that's the president of the United States. And people are like, oh. That's the only political joke I do. And the thing is, I don't think I've said anything here that isn't out of bounds or defensible. And if you don't agree with it, I don't think it comes across as just being a preachy liberal. No, I'm a human that believes in the progress of humanity.
Right.
And what's the best way to get everybody headed in the way of progress?
Do you get a lot of backlash from your friends and family in Missouri?
No, my family, we're all Democrats from birth.
Okay, but what about friends that you grew up with who that you might keep in touch with, who might not?
You decide what you want to do to keep a friendship. If you believe talking politics is going to ruin a lifetime of friendship, that's one thing. But if you are actively still friends, then that would include all of your life.
Thank you.
So it doesn't help me to be an interloper and go visit every once in a while, and you gotta accept every idea that I have. And so the best way to make any argument is to ask questions, not to tell somebody what they're doing wrong. What happens most times in an argument is somebody changes the subject. Well, this happened here. Well, yeah, what about guns? We're not talking about guns. Or if you bring up Trump, what about Obama? We're not talking about Obama. Why are you? We're talking about whatever this guy did today.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean those two people.
Yeah.
It's the same if you want to talk about running backs. What about Emmitt Smith? What year?
What about Herschel Walker?
Yeah, what year? And what team was he on?
Right.
And now you want to talk about Herschel Walker. Also, what did he or did not put into his body? At what point are we able to? What do you want to talk about that person? We can't just do blanket anything. So first, we have to address what we're talking about. We have to get to the point of that we both agree on something, and then go from there.
So you very actively use your social media platform to do just that.
Right. It doesn't help. It's not helpful.
You don't think so?
No.
I think so. Listen, I disagree with you, Dave.
Okay.
I think that Twitter particularly gets a really bad rap of being a cesspool of a social media platform. But I think if you're willing to learn different perspectives and you're willing to read and then cross-reference whatever you read, people like you who we just admire from afar will see the kinds of things that you post and tweet, and will either be inspired or be enraged. But at any rate, it makes us feel something, and it makes us do something and take action. So I do think it helps.
Does it do any good to enrage anybody at any time?
I'm not opposed to people getting angry, because I think oftentimes anger, when funneled to make progress, is productive.
All right, then what's the best use of my platform? I'll put it that way. People don't think of me as a person with political opinions. That's not how they come to be fans of me. So that has to be part of the consideration. If I am a fan of Bill Maher, I know exactly what I'm getting. That's what I'm coming for, a political opinion. Same with George Will. I know what I'm getting. So for me to post 90% of my stuff is all comedy, and then suddenly start injecting politics, is that a betrayal? Now, I can make the argument, it's my right. If you don't like it, go away. Yeah. But is that the way I can best serve whatever I call my friends, my fan base? So if my intention is to be progressive and also to look at what Mr. Obama did, you don't go out there with a hammer all the time. Now, if that's what you want to do it all the time. And if you can gently enforce the idea that, kindness and being the best progressive human you can be, that is, I think, a genteel way of perhaps inviting those that might not think the way you do to a different course of action. But I just noticed when I have done those things that are, clearly for political purpose, it really makes a lot of people upset. And I'm not sure I'm doing any good by doing that.
I don't think you should ever underestimate that one person even who sees it takes something away from it and maybe even takes it back to their own circle of influence. I mean, there's no real scientific way to
Right.
quantify that, but I don't think that you should underestimate how people who follow you and who are fans of you for your comedy and for your acting look at some of the political posts that you make or socially conscious
Right.
posts that you
Well,
make.
the thing is, I feel, and this is an ongoing discussion for even myself. I can have a political platform and then create another thing saying, this is Dave Koechner, the comedian. Also, this has a distinct political platform. You might just buyer beware. But the one I currently tend doesn't have that on it. They think it's going to be Champ Kind and Todd Packer. So if that's what they came for, that's what I should keep them there for. Now, if you can have more than one account,
True.
you know. So why not? Then, like you said, it might cross paths. Well, I'll go look it over when he's dumb. I'll go look at what he's doing when I consider dumb too. If he wants to be a dumb liberal, I'll go look at that too. All right. But if I don't want to, I can act like I'm not going to go over there. They're smoking cigars in that room. I don't like smoking cigars. I don't have to go in there.
Right.
It doesn't mean I can't like you.
I
don't know if that metaphor works, but yeah.
No, I get it.
But yeah, you got to be careful. If I had a political comic act, I don't, and that's not where my best lane is.
What is your best lane?
Well, just doing characters.
Yeah.
And not, I throw in things that are familiar to them, whether it's Champ Kind or Todd Packer, but that's certainly not my act. Those familiarities will show up during that hour, but I have my act is my life.
I want to squeeze in a couple more questions, but I know you have your next meeting. So should we hang up? Should we end it and then say to be continued?
Of course.
Okay.
This has been fun.
It was fun. Listen, we have so much to discuss. I wanted you to play my big dog, little dog rapid fire game.
Let's do it.
Okay, good. I'm just going to ask you a series of questions.
Right.
You have to answer them as quickly as you can without giving it much thought. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Something about you that most people don't know.
I'm taller than they think, and I'm not as fat as they think.
Good point. This is true. Best life advice you've ever received?
It's just the one that sticks with me that I tell everybody. There's always an answer. That's the fun of it.
Name one thing only. What is your best quality?
Probably kindness, but it's also a fault.
If you could watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Shit. I can't have two?
Nope, one.
Fuck. Life of Brian, Monty Python.
Okay. What is the one career goal on your checklist that you are still working towards?
Well, that's just not one. I want to work with a bunch of. You know what? I want to write movies, write and star in my own movies.
Okay. If you could give back one role, what would it be?
One I didn't want to do?
Right.
That's not nice.
Right.
I'm not going to do it. You look at my resume and there's a lot on there. And the ones that you look at and go, why did he do that? That's the one.
Okay. Two more. When do you feel most unsure?
It's more philosophical. I guess when I'm trying to be something that I'm not.
Tell me about it. And when do you feel most fulfilled?
I guess if I get a genuine laugh from my friends and family.
You passed. That was really fantastic. Dave Koechner. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to let you go just because you have to go. But
yeah, I do have to.
I'm holding you to coming back because.
Of course.
I mean, come on. Who doesn't want to talk to Dave Koechner for at least an hour and a half every day?
You flatter me because it is actually the other way around. Time spent with ERD is some of the best time that you can be.
He's telling you the truth.